Hi everyone, I'm Deanne Fitzmaurice, and I have 5 tips of ways that you can make your photography more engaging. The first one is serendipity. My mindset is important as I go into a shoot, but more importantly is moments unfolding naturally. And I find that if I'm patient, that happens. As in this photo of goats in a tree in Morocco. It's a photo that stops you in your tracks. It cuts through the clutter and people pay attention. This branding photo from Burning Man, first-time burners were offered a actual branding. And it's serendipity. It's just waiting for moments that you did not expect to happen. This photo from Pine Ridge Reservation, I was photographing a dog and a horse in beautiful light. All of a sudden, I saw this shadow created by the dog on the back of the horse. Serendipity. I could not have imagined that ahead of time. Tip number 2 is layers. Layers of information to help with your storytelling. This photo, back window in a car in Wyoming. I had spent the day photographing a cattle drive. It was a story about mineral rights. At the end of the day, I didn't have a good photo. So I was jumping back in my car, frustrated, and I look and I see this. This was the view out the back window. So I used these layers, foreground, middle ground, and background to make this photo more engaging. With this photo in Cuba, I tried to see how many layers I could possibly get into this image. I'm looking through every mirror, every window, and just looking at all the layers that are occurring and what's the story that's happening in each one. For tip number 3, juxtaposition. I try to juxtapose maybe incongruous things within my photograph. I'm looking for incongruity, things that don't belong together. A Romanian nun and this little boy, they were kind of just passing each other, and it just created some tension, this juxtaposition. This photo is Gibson. He is the tallest dog in the world. He's a Great Dane, and his best friend is this little Chihuahua named Zoe. And I got lucky because I didn't plan this juxtaposition, but seeing this scale difference really made the photo. This next photo is in Cuba. It's in Havana, and these 2 young women are sitting there on a Wi-Fi corner. The juxtaposition of the 2 of them together, I thought, created a dynamic and interesting composition. Tip number 4. It's about building trust, building relationship, and building rapport with the people that we photograph. People sometimes don't want to be photographed and they say no. And we have to figure out how to make them say yes. So a lot of times I try to figure out what's the reason they're saying no. How can I give them an opportunity to say yes? So here are examples of people that said no, I couldn't photograph them. The first one is Barry Bonds. I learned that I need to invest time to get to know people. He was very controversial and really didn't like being photographed. And I had a little bit of a confrontation with him. And from that moment forward, he let me into his life because I wasn't intimidated by him. Spending time and getting to know them, sometimes putting the camera down, can go a long ways. Next up is Nadia. I met Nadia Bowles-Weber on an airplane. She's a intriguing looking woman, really tall, covered in tattoos. I saw her come walking down the aisle. She's a Lutheran pastor, it turns out. She runs a church in Denver where she teaches to what she calls spiritual misfits. So she was fascinating, and I wanted to tell her story. And she said no, she didn't want to be photographed. So I had to figure out how to turn that no into a yes. And sometimes it just takes time. And so 2 weeks later, I was there in Denver photographing her. It's really about basic humanity. This was an important story to me that I've spent a long time photographing, the story of this boy named Salah. I really needed to build his trust and the trust of his family, the trust of the hospital. I needed to share a little bit of my truth so that they would trust me and so that they would open up and let me into their world. For tip number 5, light, color, and moment. Those are 3 things that are really important to me in every photograph. I try to get at least one working really well, and in the best case scenario, I get all 3. But I'm looking for beautiful light, interesting or vibrant color, and a moment that says something. In this photo of confetti at the Super Bowl, this is about color and it's about moment. I was in Miami photographing the Super Bowl for ESPN just before the pandemic happened. This next photo about musicians in Cuba, I was starting to get close in terms of getting all 3, light, color, and moment. And another photo in Cuba, this young woman sitting in a cafe. Things were coming together. It had some nice layers, and then she picked up this yellow fan, and that just made the photo. And this last photo is Shakira, also from the Super Bowl, and this photo has light, moment, and color. 3 things I'm always striving to get in my photographs. So I ask you, what are some of your guiding principles in your work? I'd say look at your work with a critical eye and look for recurring themes. What are the things that are the most important to you in your work? These 5 tips, they're my secrets for making quality, engaging images. They're also my recipe for fulfillment, because we all need our work to matter.